Hey everybody, Lars here. It's Tuesday night, 23rd February, and I thought I'd jump on real quick and do a review of quiz number 2. Everybody did pretty well, but there were some people who, didn't get the gist of the last code question, and then some people got some other things wrong. So I figured it'd be a good time to review it and go over some stuff about our quizzes, all right? So I'm going to jump right to it. I already got it set up. I got a whole bunch of code waiting for us. I'll just go over these real quick. Question number 1. In order to create a list of numbers 1 through 10, I can code the following, and I put for I in range 1 through 10. Is that true or false? The answer is false. 10 is the first thing we don't want. The second part of that range is exclusive. So if we ran this, it would give us the numbers 1 through 9. And again, I'm going to say it a million times. I'll say it again right now. When you're doing these quizzes, it's a 24-hour open book quiz. Take this code and put it in Python and run it and get the answer. You would have found out it was false when you saw only 1 through 9 and you didn't see that 10. Okay? Second question, and this one will actually take the code off and run. If I run this piece of code, what sequence of numbers does it run? How far does it go? And I believe, let's run it. There we go. The answer was 20. Okay? And like I said before, you have a question? Go ahead and run it. You see we ran it. It ran 20 times through the loop. I don't print I print a counter to tell you how many times it went through the loop, because that was the question. How many times did you run through the loop? So the answer was 20. And again, just stick it in. Stick it in Python and do the code. All right? Question number 4. A loop that continues until a special value is discovered is called it's B, a sentinel loop. I believe this is ripped. Yeah, this is ripped right out of the back of chapter 8. Infinite, definite, infinite, interactive, all different kinds of loops. But sentinel is what we're going for. When you're looking for that special value, like in your second homework assignment or the other things we did in the videos. And then when you see that special value, you jump out of the loop. That's called a sentinel loop. Okay? So that was B. Like I said, most people got this stuff, but for the people who didn't, this one got a couple of people, and it's made so that you have to consider it carefully. We will run the bad boy. And if we count all of these lines, we will see that the answer was 21. And this is why a couple of people got fooled. They saw 5 and 3. They figured, okay, I'm going to run 3 5 times, so that's 15, and they answered 15. But the truth is, you print once when you go into this outer loop, and then you print inner 3 times. So every time you go through the process, it's 4. You can see it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, there's 4 times, and you went through that loop 5 times. So that's 20 lines of text, but then I threw in a curveball. At the end, I printed the end. So that's 20 lines of text with our nested loops, and then with the last line right here, the answer is 21. Okay? And I believe slide 33 of your slides, or close to 33, I don't know if I had this from some other time, has that exact loop. So you've seen this before, and it even had the output in the slides. So remember, that's one of the points of doing this video, is whatever I ask you, you've seen before. You've definitely seen it before. And the quizzes are less testing your knowledge, because they do test your knowledge a little bit, but they're less testing your knowledge and more of making sure that you are engaging with the resources. Because if you've read the chapters and sat with the slides and know the slides, these are easy, and these tests should take you no more than 20 minutes. Tops 20 minutes. I think this one ends right there, okay? So now we get to the nitty-gritty. We've gone over the 5 questions. Now we get to the code. Now, let me open up the code. And some people, when it came to doing the code, the first thing I do, I think when I ask the question, and I don't know, is I say make a list. I think the first thing the question said was make a list of the natural numbers from 1 to 300. And some people just didn't bother. Just didn't bother making a list, and they jumped right into range. That's not what I want. I want a list. right here it said the list is equal to 0 and the sum, not sum, the sum is equal to 0. And I go into a loop and I populate my list. So in this loop right here, I create a list 1 to 300. This is 301 because it's the first thing I don't want. Okay? So now I have a list called the list with the natural numbers 1 to 300 in it. As a matter, I can change this. Hold on. I'll print it. There we go. Now that I have my list, I want to iterate through the list. When I say iterate through the list, just say for I in the list. Remember, this is Python. All we do is iterate over lists. You don't have to create a range. Some people created a range with the length of the list as the second parameter. No, you don't have to. It's iterate over the list. That's why we have sequences, so that we can iterate over them. So if I iterate over the list, considering every item, and it just so happens in this list, the items are the natural numbers 1 through 300, then I check to see if it's a multiple of 23, and I do that simply with modulus. And most of you are good with that, so I didn't have a problem there. And if that equals 0, and I do have a multiple of 23, I add it to an accumulator. And again, most people were good with the accumulator too. Most people get the concept of accumulator, so I wasn't really having any trouble there. Okay? So the sum equals the sum plus I. Some people use the plus equals, which is fine. I mean, that's later in the course we were going to see that, but you probably saw it in Zell anyway. And that's fine. I don't mind that. But just to keep things easy right now, I do the sum equals the sum plus I. And then I print it out. The sum of the multiples of 17 in the list from 1 to 300 is... Dun, 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 dun. Oh, the list is not defined. The list, maybe because I used a capital. Dun, 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 dun. And we get 2093, and the answer was 2093. Again, you got all day. Do it in Python. Take this code and run it. And when you see that it works, great. Cut and paste it into the quiz in Sakai. That's fine with me. I know that's what people do. Do it, please. I want you to do it. And this is the answer right here. Create a list of the natural numbers from 1 to 300 right here. And then iterate through that list, adding up the multiples of 23. And at the end, the variable, the sum, has them, and we add them up. And the answer was 2093. Now, 2 things about this, and then we're going to get out of here. I need to make this a short one because I'm supposed to be at the bar watching the Islanders. And hockey doesn't watch itself, so I have to do my part. 2 things. 1, some people used the variable sum. You see how some term's purple? I wonder why. And some people had this. Now, if I run this, it doesn't work. Oh, wait, no. It's going to work. That's the problem here. It works. And some people don't think there's any problem, but there is a problem. Sum is a function. It is a built-in function in Python. And everything works for us because you know what we've done? We've redefined it. So now if I try to use the real built-in function sum, it'll break because we've redefined it as a variable that's equal to 0. So you want to avoid using sum, and I'll show you why it's important right now. Hold on. Actually, leave that one there. The sum, the. Some people, somebody did this, and I thought it was really good. And I'll actually repeat it right here. I'll say list 23 is equal to a blank list. And here, I'm not going to add to an accumulator. What I'm going to do is if I find a multiple of 23, I'm going to say list 23 dot append I. Okay? So now I'm creating a list of the multiples of 23. And then what do I do down here? I'll just get the sum of list 23. That's a perfectly acceptable answer. Because what I've done, that's actually a good data science thing to do. I've created a list for the natural numbers from 1 to 300. Then I examined that list and saved only the multiples of 23. So I now have a list that's just the multiples of 23. Okay? I'm going to print that bad boy out. Because I can, that's why. All right. And look at that. I have a list of just those multiples, and now using the sum of the list, I get the same answer. That's what I want, 2093. And life is good. Okay? So that way of doing it was fine too. All right? I'm going to block this off, and I'm going to show us one more thing. Anyway, the moral of the story is avoid function names because you have built-in functions and you have to avoid them. So avoid keywords, avoid library names, and avoid function names. If anybody goes into the forums earlier today, I was in there answering questions, and somebody had named a variable string. Well, you can't do that because string is the name of a library. So whoever it was trying to use the split method on this variable string, and you can't. That's like a direct call to library string or class string, and it was blowing up. So you have to be wary when you name your variables. Avoid keywords, avoid class, avoid for, avoid anything that idle is making orange in front of our faces. Avoid functions. Look at sum. Look at range. Look at print. Those are functions. Idle is making them purple. Okay? Avoid them when you name your variables. Now, one last thing is that some people complain about this particular problem, saying I didn't know how to do it, what, blah, blah, blah. All right, I did this with the sum. Do you remember, I think one of the video, maybe the second video I did, or one of those videos, I did a quick sample program. Let me run it and make sure it runs. Yay, it runs. Where I created a blank list called squares. And then I grabbed the range from 1 to 100, and I loaded it with the squares. Then I print the squares. And then it was where I taught you about counters and accumulators. I came into this loop. I said for I in squares, so I iterate through the list. I said if I was greater than 5,000, I clicked the counter and I added it up. And then I printed out, you can see how many of the squares were over 5,000. There were 30 of them, and we did their sum, okay? So I'm sure you remember back a couple videos ago when we did that problem. Well, the point is this. If you looked at the slides and you remember, or the videos and you remembered that problem, the quiz question is the same problem. You only had to go make changes in 4 different places. I'll run it again, and look, it gives me the 2093. Now, where do I have to make those changes? I even kept the same variables here. Look, I took the 100 and I changed it, not to 200, and I changed it to 300, 301. That's it. Here, I just removed the square so that I was appending that. So now I have a list of 1 to 300. I didn't do squares. I did the actual number. So I just got rid of the star, star 2, and I have an I, okay? Now, there's only 2 other places we have to go make changes. Right there. Instead of greater than 5,000, I now test to see if it's a multiple of 23 by using modulus. That's it. Not a problem. And then the tiny change down here is I remove the counter. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask you guys for the counter. I asked you to add up all the multiples of 23. So I didn't even need that stupid counter. You didn't have to change it. You could have printed a blank variable and only made changes in 3 lines for all I cared. And then you get the answer. So you had seen this program before if you engage with the materials. And it's part of the reason why I do this video, because going forward, maybe I'll do quiz reviews, maybe I won't do quiz reviews, but I usually find myself doing one after the second unit because people will start to make little mistakes. Oh, I didn't know to make a list. Oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And it's because you go through unit 1 and you're like, oh, wow, that was pretty easy. So now it's unit 2 time, and you're thinking, oh, maybe I don't have to read the slides, or maybe I don't have to read the book, or maybe I shouldn't do this. It's not the way Python works. Python is like mathematics in that it's a pyramid. You got to build that base, and then you're going to put a level on top of the base, and then you're going to put a level on top of that level, and you're going to build on top of it. Arithmetic turns into geometry, turns into trigonometry, turns into pre-calc, turns into, up, all the way up the line. So that's how Python works. So every week you've got to read those slides, especially the slides, because everything you're going to get tested on and everything that I think is important and that I want to convey to you as, Python programmers who are just starting out, that's in the slides. The slides is where I concentrate on what I think is important. So the slides should be numero uno with you. After that, Zell, which is good, but you know my opinion to Zell. He's my crazy drunk uncle. I love him. He's got to be at the picnic, but sometimes he drives me crazy. Zell is going to do some weird things. Zell is more for exposure and more so that you have that book when this class is over, because I like the coverage in the book. But worry about the slides and worry about the videos. That's where you're going to learn, and that's where we're going to have all this stuff. And like I said, if you watched all the videos and maybe once or two times, you would have been familiar with this program. You only have a couple changes and boom, all of a sudden you've got it. Okay? So anything that shows up in those quizzes, I'm never going to throw a curveball at you. It will have been somewhere. It will have been in Zell. It will have been in the slides, or it will have showed up in one of the review videos. Okay? I'm never gonna throw a curveball at you. Never gonna surprise you. All right? That's it for the quiz review. Like I said, I wanted to make it real quick. I don't know how quick this is. It looks like 17 minutes. Ugh. As far as announcements are concerned, Eric and Hans are banging out the assignments tonight, so I'm going to have that for you. I already graded the quizzes. I'll go and pick up those little extra credit points. That was another thing. Not everybody sent in those little extra credit points, and that tells me you're not reading the slides. Okay? Another thing about those extra credit points, the day you send it in, that's the day I know you read the slides. So not only are half the people not reading the slides, half the people aren't reading them until 5 or 6 days before the end of the unit. Okay? And I know that because I know who put in for the extra point, the extra credit point. Some people are like, extra credit point? What the hell is that? Well, if you read the slides, you knew what it was. Okay? You got to engage with the materials. If you engage with the materials and you do everything, there's going to be no confusion, and this stuff is going to be easy for you because it's not hard. It's really not hard. It's going to be easy, all right? So that's the quiz review. Hopefully Unit 2 grades are going to be back to you sometime tomorrow. The boys have to finish with the assignments, and then I got to put together the emails, and hopefully I'll get time to do that tomorrow night. Tomorrow night I may also be doing your Unit 3 video on file input and output. Hopefully I get that to you soon. In a few days, I'm going to release the second assignment, which is going to include the use of your harshed function from assignment number 1. So be wary of that and be working on that. 2 more things to mention really quick. Next Monday, we have class. The extra day, the free day, February 29th. So we're going to be in the core auditorium that day. Make sure I mark that off on the calendar and don't miss class. We'll go over a bunch of this stuff and we'll go over some other stuff. It'll be fun. And the very last thing is, do not forget that a week from this Friday, your midterm project is due. So if you have not, and I hope this isn't the case, but if you have not been working with Learn Python the Hard Way and Code Academy and with the MIT open courseware stuff, the 2 lectures that I have, start now, get there now, because we need that paper. I need that paper on that Friday. Okay, I'm not going to be taking that late. And that's a decent chunk of points if you go look at this syllabus. So make sure you're on top of that, all right? I don't want anybody to get messed up by the timing there and get something to me late where I'm not going to be able to take it for full points, because it's a good chunk of points there, all right? All right, then you be good. Hopefully I'll be back in a couple of days. Remember, if you have questions, go to the forums. People are asking good questions. People are asking really great questions. I love that people are messing around trying to read Microsoft Word files, and I love that people are messing around with different – that's how we learn when we learn programming languages. So please go make a mess of things, all right? That's how we learn, by failing, by messing things up and then getting out of those messes. That's exactly how we learn, especially with computer programming. So please go out there and make a big, ugly mess of things, all right? You have my permission. You have a good night. Hopefully the Islanders will beat the Wild tonight. I don't know. We're going to find out. Actually, they started playing about 20 minutes ago, so it's only the first period. Hopefully nobody scored yet. All right, you be good, and I will talk to you later. Bye.